Welcome to the Make Me Whole podcast. I'm your host, Josette Rosado, and it's time to talk getting past what's difficult, trusting our own abilities to do more, and keeping it that way. Ooh, today is going to be a good one. I am all about this topic because I find so many people coming to me and asking why they do what they do with the people around them. Sometimes we just have to deal with why it is that we find ourselves acting in ways that make us feel uncomfortable when we're around certain people. And that's what I call people pleasing. Now, I am an authority on this. When I say I'm a reformed people pleaser, what I really mean is that I no longer choose this as my behavior. I used to find myself leaving room for everybody whenever they needed it, however they needed it. And the cost was not putting myself first. There's nothing wrong with being a kind or generous person. Actually, it's really a good value to have, especially when you think about how people have been treating each other lately. Kindness and generosity are always a welcome thing. I think for me, the way I engaged in people pleasing, and I know a lot of you feel this way too, was really so that less people would be upset with me and I would keep peace between myself and more aggressive individuals who often needed that coddling or needed me to be at a certain level of submissiveness so that they felt important or heard. I also used it to help avoid conflict or arguments between myself and other people because I thought if I just did what they needed me to do or wanted me to do or went along with what they believed I should have, then there would be no problems. This, of course, oftentimes showed up, especially with family members. My father, when we were young, had a reminder for us as his children. Family first, meaning you make sure that in all your decisions and in how you're interacting with others, you consider the needs of the family first. Keep in mind, I'm the oldest of the kids, so I had been hearing this over and over for a lot longer than anyone else. What wasn't clear at all was how that works when you become an adult and create a family of your own. I had a husband, 2 kids, but the only way I could keep peace was to consider the opinions and needs of others before my own. Don't even think about questioning it. It just doesn't happen that way. I was left with nothing more but question. Which family do I put first? Were there no compromises we could make regularly and without getting into an argument? Wasn't my family just as important in their eyes? Couldn't I put them first? It wasn't just mother, father, sisters now. I had my own little family to look after. And no matter what I did or how I did it, there was no way to please both sides. I guess since I'd never been outside the walls of my family, putting myself first was not really something I considered. Here's an example. I'm older than my youngest sister by about 15 years. So she was pretty young when I finished college and finally moved out of my parents' house at about the age of 21. Now here comes the expectation. Since my sister was so young, the understanding was that on Christmas Day, we would travel over to my mom's house early enough so that when she got up, she didn't have to wait too long to open her gifts. Now, I love my baby sister, and it made me so happy to see her happy. But at the same time, I'm in my 20s, and getting up really early in the morning and making sure I was at my parents' house to watch her open her gifts was really not on the top of my priority list. So up I got, dressed and ready to go early enough to keep everyone happy. And if I ever was delayed, I was sure to receive multiple phone calls asking me where I was and how long it was going to take me to get there. But after a while, this became really taxing. I was tired and I wasn't sure that getting up that early was something that I wanted to spend my Christmas day doing. By the time my children came along, my oldest, there was a question as to why I wouldn't want to spend Christmas Day with my sister, not realizing that I had my own memories that I wanted to create, making sure, of course, that I saw my youngest sister open gifts, but wanting to do so after I spent Christmas morning with my own family, with my own child. And this was the way things pretty much went for all of the holidays. Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, all took place at my mother's house. And at that time, I thought, well, this is normal because all holidays should take place there. Guess what happened, though? I realized I wanted to host some of the holidays. Why couldn't we take turns so everyone could get an opportunity to have the family over? In my head, I thought this was a great idea and everyone would have been on board and it just would have worked out. But my mother wasn't comfortable going to other people's homes, even if the other people were actually her daughters. And on the off times that she did come and celebrate the holiday outside of her house, because we did get her to do it once or twice, it would be met with understanding how uncomfortable she was and how she would never do this again. So again, the holidays went back to my parents' house with the one understanding that Christmas was ours. But not easily, of course. The compromise, well, we had to be there Christmas Eve and let the kids open their gifts before the morning, pleasing my mom and dad in ways that may or may not have worked for us. It didn't matter. Now you're probably thinking, well, Josette, that's not people pleasing. That's following what your family wants you to do and you grew out of it. It's true, but at the same time, it created a habit where the check-in was always with my parents and the family first. I neglected my own needs or wants. I didn't take into account how this would affect my little family. I was more worried about what my actions would create as far as how people saw me and what they thought of me, and didn't realize that I was identifying with being accepted by my actions as they worked for everyone else. I was just blindly following whatever it was that everyone needed me to do. So if I was told that the things I liked or thought were wrong, I had to accept that as truth because there was no way I could be thinking of that on my own, and it didn't fall in line with what everybody else needed. There's no greater scale than our families to determine what is and isn't acceptable. So it starts from our families and then leads up to the friends and associates who come into our lives. Now, you will probably run into lots of people along the way, but I'm talking about those people who don't always have your best interest at heart. These are those individuals who blatantly take advantage of your people-pleasing persona. Okay, but listen, this doesn't mean that you are a target or you're so vulnerable or childish that you can't see what's right in front of you. These people are good at what they do. And what they do is make sure that their needs are met, and you going against that is a problem. These are people who can't meet their own needs and depend on the kindness and the understanding of someone who feels they'd like to have the world at peace. Okay, but now it's time to consider. We're older and a lot smarter, leaving us to be able to make decisions that work best for us. It doesn't mean it'd be easy to do and often takes a lot of thought, a lot of reflection. And to be honest, sometimes we just don't want to deal with it. I know that you get what I'm talking about. You know the feeling. You've been there. So, how do we fight against this process, this habit? How do we break that behavior? How do we remain comfortable with just being ourselves and not putting on some kind of mask for other people? It's kind of funny to me how often I fell into this situation where I never stopped and said, hey, you know what? It's okay to say no. The idea of the consequences behind saying no was so paralyzing. And it was just so much easier to give in as opposed to being looked at as that pain in the ass who was always causing drama. Let me speak some truth. Life begins when you realize you don't have to prove shit to anyone. Let's take the first step. Repeat after me. No. No, thank you. No, I don't think that's going to work for me. No, I have other plans. No, that just doesn't fit in with what I'm trying to do. This is a hard concept. And since you're maybe a yes person, I want you to flip it. I read this book several years ago by Shonda Rhimes called The Year of Yes. And in it, she speaks on how she's this very famous producer and she's written for so many shows and she was able to adopt children. And yet her life was still unfulfilled because the things that she wanted to do, the things that she wanted to be open to, she never said yes to. She said it for everyone else, but never to herself. And so she dedicated a year of saying no to those things that weren't going to serve her or the things that would make her happy, the time she wanted to spend doing those things with her children, with her family members, by herself. And she started saying yes to her own needs. It's okay if there's something you don't want to do when you are asked of someone to do it, especially when it's unreasonable. So let's talk about setting up that force field. It's going to keep you safe, but also give you the ability to see what's going on around you. Our healthy word for today, boundaries. I know you've heard that word 1,000 times. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. What does it mean? When I explain it to my clients, I talk to them about, in Harry Potter, if you've ever seen it, there's this wall where they can come in and out of certain rooms. And the wall is flexible. You go through it if you have the power to go through it, and otherwise it is blocked off from you. And that's the kind of boundary we need to set up with the people around us. Some people are going to be able to get through. They will have either earned that or there's something requiring that entry. But most people are not going to just be able to come in and out as they please. Again, I'm not suggesting that you don't spend any time taking care of others, especially when you have a friend or family member that oftentimes reciprocates that same kind of feeling. We give to them, they give to us, and it isn't feeling like it's owed, it's feeling like it's natural. You have to listen to your inner voice. When I say that, I mean, you know those people that come in and they treat you like a doormat. And for a while, you might think this is okay and that they've probably gone through something to make them act that way. We all have that inner voice that tells us when people are toxic. It's just that many times we don't choose to listen. It's so cliche to say that you can't make everyone happy all the time. But honestly, people's needs are different from one person to another. And I don't know about you, but trying to read the room and make sure every single person is okay would exhaust me. Okay, we're learning to say no, we're setting up boundaries, and now we just have to learn how to be assertive. Not aggressive, assertive. And stand up for yourself. I often find that it's important to let other people know that they can't dictate how you live, and this will help you reinforce the boundaries you've created and make sure that they're being respected. And asking for help in this is not such a bad thing either. It's actually a big step in overcoming people pleasing. So if you have a close person, like a best friend, a therapist, ask for feedback on what they see you doing, how you might do things differently. Be open to what they have to say, because honestly, it could come from a really helpful perspective and give you that green light to focus more on the energies that are geared towards you. When you fully accept yourself, it's okay not to be perfect. And you acknowledge not only your strengths, but your weaknesses, and prevent others from using it to their advantage. Once you've practiced that assertiveness, set up those boundaries, really focused on what makes you strong and what value you have, then it's time to be more honest about your feelings so that others realize that there are expectations you have related to your relationship. And so, not everyone is going to be happy with these changes. They are used to you being a certain way, acting a certain way towards them, falling into their needs more than your own. So don't be surprised if you get some pushback, because that's to be expected. With family members, it's most important that they see you for who you truly are and celebrate those things that are unique about you and the decisions you've made in your life. The next time you feel like, well, someone's going to judge me, it's just easier to do it their way. Otherwise, they're going to get upset with me. I need to make sure I'm keeping peace within my family group, my friend group. I want you to take a second and step back and look at yourself and say, does this suit my needs? Is this something that I feel comfortable doing? Or am I really letting someone else's needs come before my own? Take a minute and look at yourself and recognize if this works for you or if it doesn't. And if it doesn't, hey, that's okay. As I've said, it's okay for us to have needs too. There's something so uniquely powerful about you, something that only you get to see every day. Don't waste your time focusing on how to prove yourself to everyone. The only person that you need to be better than is whoever you were yesterday. Well, I think I've said enough. Told you I had a lot to say about this. Thank you so much for your continued support and listening to the podcasts. Welcome to all my new subscribers. You won't regret being here. Don't forget to reach out to me on email at makemewhole@bossesofbliss.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Bosses of Bliss and on TikTok at Blissful Boss. Remember, complain less and do more. I'll see you next time.